This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Hey team, we have a new sponsor here at the Crypto Conversation, BitGet, one of the world's leading copy trading cryptocurrency exchanges. Yes, indeed. What happens if you've got the funds to invest, but you don't have the time to keep track of the market? You still want to make smart money moves. What do you do? Well, copy trading is a popular choice for beginner traders. You can shorten your learning curve by uncovering tips and strategies from more experienced traders. BitGet's copy trading platform has over 80,000 elite traders to choose from and 380,000 followers just like yourself who are already using the BitGet copy trading platform as a potential passive income stream. All it takes is one click. You can subscribe to an elite, profitable strategist, set your limits, automate your orders, and monitor their trades. I've got some links in the show notes below. One link will take you through to the BitGet sign-up page, give you a VIP discount. So learn all about it for yourself thanks to BitGet. And now it is on with the show. Hey folks, Andy here, and yes, firstly, thanks to BitGet for sponsoring the show. As I mentioned, that VIP link to sign up to BitGet is in the show notes, and if you use that link, you can sign up and trade to get a $50 bonus. Yes, indeed, $50 bonus in USDT. So, what are you waiting for? Sign up to BitGet and redeem your $50 in USDT just by following the link in the show notes. My guest today is Brett Sager. Brett is a commercial trial lawyer at Ehrenstein Sager, which is a business law boutique providing various bespoke trial and transactional services to their clients. Very interesting. Yeah, so welcome to the show, Brett.
Thank you for having me, Andy.
So, Brett, of course, we'll do what we do at the beginning of the show, which is I'll invite you to please introduce yourself. I'd love to hear a little bit about your professional story and, what you do as a lawyer.
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Brett Sager. I'm a commercial trial lawyer at Ehrenstein Sager. We are a boutique firm located in Miami, Florida. I specialize in assisting businesses and individuals involved in complex commercial disputes, particularly disputes involving digital assets. Over the last 2 to 3 years, digital assets have become focal points of the legal disputes I'm involved with. More and more of my clients have been dedicating their time and money to the evolving world of Web3 and digital assets. And to best serve my clients and meet their needs, I've familiarized myself with the world of Web3, blockchain, and digital assets, which includes a credential from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School in the economics of blockchain and digital assets. And Andy, I'm so honored that you've given me the opportunity to speak to your audience. To those who are listening, I'm excited to speak to you about how investors can start to think about some of the many ways they can protect themselves when investing in Web3, which is really the Wild West at this point. The Web3 world is changing at lightning speed and is largely unregulated at this time. The rules, regulations, and risks which may apply to an investment in Web3 or digital assets are unique to each investment and are very fact-specific. And if anyone in the audience is thinking about investing in Web3 or digital assets, please feel free to give me a call, and I'm happy to discuss it with you.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And I suppose by Web3 is certainly an all-encompassing term, but I can see, Brett, that you've there's a blog post that you've written where you talk about play to earn Web3 games and Metaverse land sales and things like that. So we can discuss all of that today. I suppose to start with, Brett, when you talk about helping clients in this space, can you talk about some of the different types of clients, I suppose, that you might be looking after in this space?
Sure. They range and, all types of different things. It's transactions and disputes. But off the top of my head, I recently helped a game developer who was asked to help develop a play to earn game. So that, and obviously for confidentiality reasons and the agreements, I can't discuss the name of the client or the game, but it's a well-known game, and it took some time to develop, and we were influential in helping him negotiate his agreement with the game. We've also helped a digital asset trading platform navigate some regulatory oversight in several different countries, and also helping clients understand digital assets that they were interested in purchasing, as well as NFTs and things like that.
Yeah, got it. And one of the challenges, Brett, and I'm sure you understand this better than most, is that as much as Web3 is advancing quickly, and essentially the rails of Web3, in theory, decentralized blockchain platforms that allow anyone in the world to participate in the emerging Web3 economies. But it becomes difficult when, the ethos of Web3 is to, make these kind of opportunities available to anyone in the world. But of course, in the real world, each different jurisdiction where people might live have differing sets of rules and regulations, if they have any rules and regulations at all. So I imagine it's quite a difficult terrain to navigate from a legal point of view, Brett.
Absolutely, and the client I was talking about that had the digital currency trading platform had multiple regulatory questions from several different jurisdictions all at once. So you can imagine, based on your introduction to that issue, how difficult that was to navigate the laws of, or help the client navigate the laws and regulations of several different countries all at once.
Yeah. So just broadly speaking, how do you see this evolving in the years ahead, and what are some of the things that you'd like to see to make it, I suppose, an easier area for people to get into if they want to participate in some of these Web3 economies?
Yeah, I could, as far as the United States goes, we've had some states take action in trying to be the pioneers in developing more modernized rules and regulations regarding, digital assets. But I would like to see, at a federal level, at least, uniformity. So that way, when clients that, I'm helping either navigate transaction or disputes, or doing investment myself and things like that, it's easier to understand what regulations apply to what I'm doing. Which obviously would make life easier for everybody, because, as it stands, there are questions being raised by federal agencies, and questions are being raised about what those federal agencies are doing and the laws that they're using to support their actions. And then you have different states in the United States that you also have to navigate as far as their regulations go. So it makes it very difficult and costly for people who want to get involved in this world, or in the Web3 world as it stands.
Yeah, and one of the things that's interesting is if you compare, I suppose, a property in the real world, bricks and mortar, a physical property could be commercial real estate or a residential property that you live in. There are clear and established rules for the purchasing, sale, or renting of those properties. However, when we're talking about the virtual world or the metaverse, if you like, digital properties, it's a little bit different. So, a lot of these properties or metaverse land, real estate is sold on platforms like OpenSea. So it's kind of, the idea is, I suppose, it's just a marketplace, but you're never really dealing with the owner of that property, which could be something like, Decentraland or the Sandbox or Axie Infinity, one of those games. So I suppose if something goes wrong, what kind of recourse does the buyer have, and how does a legal representative such as yourself fit into that picture, Brett?
Absolutely. So that's a great question, or a great group of questions. And I think the best way to answer it is, and for the audience to understand, is to compare a real property transaction in real life, in reality, as compared to how it goes in the metaverse. And, starting with owning property in reality, and I'm talking specifically about owning property in the United States. The property is obviously tangible, and because of that, it's subject to our laws and our courts, particularly the courts in which the property lies. The property rights in the United States are protected by the United States Constitution. If the government were to take your property in a process called eminent domain for a public purpose, the government is required to justly compensate the owner for the value of the property. In a land sale transaction, in reality, like you had pointed out, the identities of the parties are known. They come together from the open market. They negotiate terms of their sale. The seller will make disclosures to the purchaser about the property and about the property's history to the extent the seller knows. And the parties will usually execute an enforceable contract and have a due diligence process. So that would be inspections, title searches, things like that. So everybody has their eyes wide open as to what the transaction involves. Now, if something goes wrong in a land sale transaction in reality, a lawsuit can get filed and in a court where in the county where the property sits, and something called a lis pendens can get filed of record, and that is designed to prevent the property from changing hands while the dispute is pending, and because it puts the world on notice of the claimant's claim to the property. And at the end of that process, a judge or a jury will determine who prevails, and that determination will be enforced by a judgment. So that's how it works in reality, and at least in Florida in the United States, how the dispute process works from a very broad perspective. Now, owning property in the metaverse is completely different. Number one, it's largely unregulated and it lacks oversight. So that's one of the reasons why investors should have their eyes wide open when they're investing in this type of a transaction. The property isn't tangible and it sits virtually on the blockchain network for whatever platform the property appears on. The property rights are not protected by the US Constitution like how they are in reality. Instead, the virtual property is going to be subject to the terms and conditions of the platform on which the property appears. So an example is Decentraland or Sandbox. Both of those platforms have their own terms and conditions, which subscribers or property owners consent to by purchasing property and actively participating in that platform. The virtual property can be purchased through, like you said, a metaverse real estate marketplace like OpenSea, or directly from the platform on which the property appears, to the extent that there are still some available. Now, the purchase process is nothing like a real-world property transaction. The format of the virtual property transaction is a smart contract. The terms of the purchase are adjusted into the smart contracts code by the seller, and if accepted by the purchaser and payment is made, the transaction is complete and recorded into the blockchain. There's no due diligence period. There are no disclosures made by the seller. Like you said, you don't know who the identity of the seller is. And no changes. A big difference is no changes to the transaction can be made after the transaction takes place. And the only way to do that is with an affirmative vote of the DAO, which is probably unlikely. The dispute differences, there are dispute differences if something goes wrong in the metaverse and buying property therein. Now, first off, the law on smart contracts is highly undeveloped. It hasn't really worked its way through the courts. There haven't been enough decisions to really have finality as to understanding the rights of parties to smart contracts, and that raises a lot of different questions. If the property is purchased from the platform, then the purchaser is going to be subject to the terms and conditions of the platform, like I had just mentioned a few minutes ago, which generally are going to favor the platform and seek to insulate the platform from virtually everything. The terms and conditions will probably also limit a purchaser's legal options. For example, in the United States, someone, if they have a legal dispute, can file a lawsuit. However, if there is a contract with an arbitration clause or an arbitration selection clause, those are generally upheld by the courts. And the difference from arbitration from a legal dispute or a court action here in the United States is quite different. When you have a dispute in a court, the judge or jury makes the determination, and then there's a judgment. And if a party believes that there was an error in reaching that decision, the party has appellate rights where it can go and ask an appellate court to review the decision of the trial court to determine whether there is any error. In an arbitration, the decision is made by an arbiter or a group of arbiters, usually 1 to 3. And the arbiter is not a is not an appointed or voted judge or elected judge. It's somebody selected by the parties that they pay for, and their decision, the arbiter's decision, is usually upheld unless there's fraud or something like that, which it's a pretty high standard, and there isn't usually an appellate process to an arbitration. So, in addition to the arbitration, the terms and conditions of the platform will also make it difficult and lengthy and expensive to pursue a dispute with the platform. And when I say that, in the terms and conditions of Decentraland, which I pulled from its website a few days ago, you're required to first initially attempt to informally resolve your dispute with Decentraland, which that's a 30-day process, may go somewhere, may not, probably not. And if it doesn't resolve, then you have to pursue binding arbitration. And guess where you have to pursue it? In Panama. So if you're somebody like me living in Miami, Florida, and you have an issue with Decentraland that you want to pursue, you have to go to Panama and arbitrate with them over there, which not only is going to take a lot of time, but it's going to be very expensive, as you can imagine, litigating, in a country halfway around the world. So this is where the dispute process is completely different than the dispute process from real property. And, these issues don't mean that every platform is, not worth investing in or not taking a look at in order to invest money. But this is something that, obviously investors should be aware of when they make their decision as to whether the level of risk is worth it to them.
Yeah, very, very much so, Brett. And, another factor, of course, is I think most people that are participating in metaverse activities such as play to earn games or buying virtual real estate, if they've had any experience in the crypto markets to date, then of course, the first thing you learn is that crypto is volatile and the value of your assets can fluctuate wildly. And unfortunately, on a long enough time frame, many of these assets can trend to zero, NFT collections and the like. Certainly with virtual real estate, some of course will do very, very well, but it's of course it's very difficult to pick the winners. But it's like I think most people will have, anyone that has NFTs will have some that have dropped in value considerably in this bear market that we're in at the moment. But yeah, I think it's just, and we'll talk about how investors can conduct their own due diligence, but it's just a reality, isn't it, in these markets? Yeah, buyer beware, volatile times ahead, Brett.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the risks that an investor in the metaverse is going to face is, what if the platform fails, right? What if it goes to zero, or what if the developers just decide we're not doing this anymore? What happens in that scenario? And like I keep mentioning, these terms and conditions, and to the extent that they would be enforced either in a court or an arbitration, they largely favor the metaverse platform and insulate them from liability. And an example of that is on page 2 of Decentraland's terms and conditions. And it says the foundation, and they're talking about this, the Decentraland Foundation, has no continuing obligation to operate the tools in the site, and may cease to operate one or more of the tools in the future at its exclusive discretion, with no liability whatsoever in connection thereto. So, I'm not sure that would completely be enforced by a court or an arbiter. It may not, but obviously that's a concern that an investor would want to have if they're deciding to invest in the metaverse. Now, Decentraland is one of the 2 major metaverse platforms. It's been in existence for a long time. Its market cap, as of today, from Yahoo Finance was 881 million. So it seems like it's healthy. It's been around for a while. It has celebrities endorsing it. It has blue chip corporations participating in it, and high fashion brands. That in and of itself doesn't mean anything. We all saw what happened with FTX. But it does have a track record. It does seem to be doing a significant volume of transactions. So, is it possible that tomorrow Decentraland ends and people are stuck with a bag? Anything's possible. Is it more likely than not that that's going to happen? Probably not.
Yeah, well said, Brett. And, as much as there are some of the bigger platforms like Decentraland and as you've mentioned, it's has a certain amount of credibility just through its association with and I guess brand partnerships with various celebrities and fashion brands. And the like. And I think, the Decentraland founders at least are public facing and known. But, there are countless other Web3 projects that either fail through, as you kind of talked about, developers just getting bored and essentially walking away from the project. And worse than that, there are also many, what people call rug pulls, which are just outright Web3 scams. And it's, I think it's just part of the game. People know that some projects will either just be abandoned or will turn out to be scams, and it's almost just not worth the bother of trying to chase down a failed investment and something like that, because you just know that it's going to be a rabbit hole with nothing at the end.
True. I mean, you asked me, a while back, one of the things that I'd like to see different, and I talked about a change in regulation, and this is an area where it would help, right? Because, if somebody, at least in the United States, is investing, in a publicly traded stock, they're going to get disclosures where they can understand the financial health of the corporation and other information relating to that. And when I mentioned, the Web3 being the Wild West, it kind of is right now, because, unfortunately, investors aren't usually going to get that information from a platform before they decide to invest their money. So like you said, it's just one of those things where you got to have your eyes wide open, and it certainly is possible that you can invest in a scheme. And one of those examples was in 2021. there was a new currency called Squid, which was going to be a cryptocurrency for a play to earn game that was created by game developers to be used as an in-game currency for a game based on the show Squid Game. And in less than 1 week, the value of Squid rose from 1 cent to more than $2,800. And the popularity, of course, in addition to the value, grew tremendously. And then the developers of the game stole more than $3 million and raised capital, and the value of Squid went back to under a cent. And unfortunately, the people who invested money were left empty-handed. And that's, like you said, that's sometimes part of this game, at least until regulation gets a little bit more clear. And the Web3 participants, or at least the on the platform side, are required to provide investors with the disclosures that they would otherwise get if they were investing in a publicly traded stock.
Yeah, that's a good example, Brett. I remember the Squid token, the Squid Game thing. And, this is it's part and parcel of what we see happening. Unfortunately, there's something similar happening at the moment with the continued rise of meme coins like the Pepe coin. Based on the Pepe the Frog, a meme that's done really well this year. And it's just because it speaks to the power of memes, right? And of course, the attraction that people feel to memes. And so, of course, Dogecoin was the original meme coin, I suppose. And it's kind of the Web3 paradox. We have these open, permissionless protocols. So anyone can spin up their own token, create a meme coin, and if they have a little bit of a social media following, or they can create just a little bit of excitement around that, and then people jump on it, and the meme takes off. And that's the Wild West power of these open, permissionless protocols. But of course, something as more and more people buy in, eventually the smart money gets out, and it's often the little guys that get holding the bag, and not much they can do sometimes.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true.
Well, let's talk about how people can perhaps do their own due diligence. What are some of the risks? And one way we could approach this, Brett, is you wrote a blog post on this, just looking at how people can approach Web3 and play to earn games, and what some of the things they should look out for are, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And although it was geared towards play to earn games, I mean the factors apply as well to investing, in real estate in the metaverse. And obviously not all metaverse platforms or PDE games or fraudulent schemes, many of them are very lucrative. Yes. And they have solid track records, but there are some that unfortunately don't. And because of the present lack of oversight and regulation, there's always risk that an investment in the Web3 space could go sour, because nefarious actors are always out there looking to take advantage of people, unfortunately. But there are some things that investors can do in order to weigh their individual level of risk. One of those is, ask yourself, how long has this platform or play to earn game been in existence? Like any other new investment, a new platform brings more uncertainty than a platform with an established track record, like, Decentraland or Sandbox. We've already talked about those. Those are two of the big ones that everyone knows, or Axie Infinity. Those are, they've been around for a while. And because of that, it's more likely than not that those are going to have a safer investment, and nothing is foolproof safe, but it'll probably be safer as an investment than in something that does not have a long track record. And that doesn't mean that, something new with, lacking a track record is not going to be something that can yield significant returns and that is legitimate. That's always possible. But, when comparing it with something that's been around for a while, it's more likely than not that the one that's been around for a while, that's had significant volumes of transactions, is probably going to be a safer play. Another factor is, how many active users does the platform or the PDE game have? If the platform or the PDE game has a large pool of active users, it's more likely that it's going to be legitimate because there are more eyes on the platform and its development and its management. And when there aren't a lot of eyes on the platform, that allows for the whoever's in charge of the management of the game, or that provides an opportunity, I should say, for a nefarious actor to do what they do best. The third thing that an investor can look at when weighing their individual level of risk is decide or look, and this is usually available, just by Google searches or on the platform's website, is to see what type of cryptocurrency does the platform or PDE game authorize for transactions. A more established platform will probably have, in-game currency or in-world currency, such as Decentraland having mana or Sandbox having sand. But a lot of the more established games or metaverse platforms will allow users to also transact with other forms of currency, such as, Bitcoin or Ether. If a platform like, for example, Squid or the Squid game limits a user's ability to transact to the native token in the game or the platform, that is also something that could be a risk factor that the investor should consider. Just because a platform or PDE game requires a user to use the in-game or platform currency as opposed to others, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a fraudulent scheme. This is something that this factor should be considered in conjunction with the others we've discussed. But it's something, that if combined with not having a long track record as a platform or a PTE game, or not having many active users thereon, then that could raise the level of concern for the investor.
Yeah, very much agree. Thank you for sharing some thoughts there, Brett, on how people can essentially do their own due diligence. Just as we finish off this part of the podcast, Brett, it strikes me that as much as we had this incredible bull market in 2021 with a lot of hype and new users coming into Web3, and we had the Metaverse narrative running hot. Now, 2 years later, 2023, the technology and also, to a certain extent, the VC narrative has shifted slightly, if not significantly, towards AI. I'm sure you've noticed, and there's a little bit less buzz around Web3 as crypto and, well, the world in general, macro, all markets are down as we struggle with the threat of recession and rampant inflation, and, well, things are just a little bit trickier around the world. I'm curious, Brett, have you played around with all various crypto tokens and play to earn games and the metaverse yourself? And do you see significant opportunities going forward? Just interested in your thoughts.
Yes, I do. I do play with PDE games myself outside of my law practice, and I will. And I, as I've stated in the two blog posts that you mentioned, that hopefully you'll share for your listeners.
I'll pop them in the show notes. Yes,
that'd be great. The market has exploded for PTE games. I think it's a new opportunity for people to play games, and obviously it's in the metaverse is different than, being on an Xbox and playing, for instance, Call of Duty or something like that. And in addition to that, you get to everything you do in the game is worth some type of currency. So your the hours and hours that you spend is worthwhile. And I think that's very interesting. I think it's fun, and I think it brings a level of excitement to gaming that hasn't been there for a little while. There have been some developments here and there, but this is a whole new world that has opened up. And I think as the technology underlying PTE games in the metaverse is expanding, you're going to see more and more people around the world partake in it, and particularly in Latin America. Latin America has really had a takeoff in PTE gaming and metaverse platforms.
Awesome. Thank you, Brett. Yeah, and you're right. It's really just about the ability for people to own their in-game assets and increase the value of those assets through, whatever activities they need to undertake in those games. And I'm sure it's really just a matter of time and technology innovation. Certainly, still a massive amount of interest in Web3 and it's the associated platforms, games and economies. So yeah, be an interesting decade ahead. Let's go to a very quick break, Brett, and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll run you through the very famous Crypto Conversation Hot Take Round. We'll be back in 1 second.
Look, we'd all like to say we're pro traders, but the reality is we're probably not. But with BitGet, you don't have to be. Why? Because BitGet is the world's largest copy trading exchange. Instead of you muddling through it on your own, feel confident. BitGet allows you to automatically copy trade from over 80,000 elite traders with 24/7 support on our secure copy trading platform. Start following expert traders on bitget.com. Check for details in the show notes and join BitGet today.
All right, we are back, and I'm with Brett Sager. Brett, of course, is a commercial trial lawyer at Ehrenstein Sager, specializing a little bit in digital assets. Brett, you may or may not know, but I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid-fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Okay. Sure.
Let's do it, Brett. I'm just going to run some questions at you. Just want you kind of, honest opinions, hot take style answers, just a bit of fun. Question 1 for you, Brett. Bill Gates famously said, we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. If you cast your mind forward, just feel free to speculate. Web3, what does it start to look like in 10 years' time?
From where it's gone in the last 5 years to see where it could be in the next 10 years, it's hard to imagine what it will be, because just in what AI has done in the last 6 to 12 months is incredible. Who knows? I'm excited to see where it goes, and I think it's beyond our imagination where it will be in 10 years.
Absolutely. Very well said. And the flip side of this is a quote by sci-fi author William Gibson, who said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, Brett, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
Yes. In the United States, an example is only 16% or at least as of September of last year, only 16% of adult Americans have purchased a digital asset. I think it's an area that many have not been exposed to, and will grow in popularity. It already is. And as far as in Latin America, it's there. It's expanding. The telecommunications structure or infrastructure is being built to deliver it there, but it's taking off in Latin America, and to see where it will be in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you played around much with AI yourself, Brett?
I have. It's actually it's pretty fun. My partner for Valentine's Day asked ChatGPT to write his wife a love letter or a poem.
Yeah.
And it was very well written. It was so well written that my partner didn't even revise it, and he sent it to his wife. It was very nice.
Yeah, I've been playing around with the various large language models, and I think in a future episode I want to get an AI. I'm going to run an AI through the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round and get so I'll get ChatGPT or Google's Bard to provide the answers. So I'll essentially interview Google Bard or ChatGPT, and then get an AI to voice the answers. So I just got to figure out the easiest workflow to do that. But yeah, crazy times.
Very cool.
All right, let's start to finish this off, Brett. Final question. What is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
1984.
Ooh, a classic answer. Yeah, George Orwell, 1984. Pure dystopia. I love it.
Yep.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for coming on the show, Brett. Just as we start to finish off, please share any final words of wisdom that you have for potential participants in the emerging Web3 and Metaverse economies, and also, please just give us the short pitch for anyone that has potentially, I suppose, more US listeners that are looking for some kind of legal representation, perhaps because if they have some kind of Web3 dispute or they want to protect themselves, how should they get in touch? What should they do?
Sure. So first I will say the Web3 space is exciting. And although there is presently a high level of risk, hopefully it will start to decrease as our regulators here in the US as well as abroad start to create regulation to apply to it. But despite that, I don't think people should be discouraged from opportunities that are presently there. It's just you got to be smart while you're doing it. And hopefully some of the factors that I've shared today will help people weigh their individual level of risks to make their own investment decisions. And like I said, if anybody would like to discuss their potential investments or level of risks, legal risks to doing so, or if a dispute arises involving digital assets, please feel free to email me. My email is Brett, BRETT, at ehrensteinsager.com, and that's EHRENSTEINSAGER.com. Or you can call us. Our phone number is 305-503-5930.
Awesome. And I'll put your firm's website in the show notes as well. Thank you very much, Brett. All the best, and bye for now.
Bye-bye.
All right, there you go. That was Brett Sager from Ehrenstein Sager talking, what you can do from a legal point of view in Web3. Certainly, still a murky, messy old world, but that's why it's exciting. That's why it's the Wild West. The risk-reward ratios are still as intriguing as they have always been. All right, I better leave it there for today's show. Thank you very much to Brett for coming on. Thank you for listening here at the end of the show. Please do make sure you're subscribed to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. And thanks again, of course, to BitGet for sponsoring the show. And if you want to get a $50 bonus, you can sign up to BitGet as I mentioned at the start of the show. Link is in the show notes. All right. Thank you, team. Thanks for listening. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin.